Psalm 70 is brief, containing only 5 verses, but brevity does not mean shallowness. David compresses urgent prayer, honest confession of need, and confident expectation of God's justice into a tight space. The psalm shares similar thoughts with Psalm 40, verses 13 to 17, suggesting David drew from an existing prayer and sharpened it for immediate use. The superscription reads, "To bring to remembrance," showing a memorial offering. David does not waste words in this psalm. "Make haste, O God, to deliver me. Make haste to help me, O Lord." Psalm 70, verse 1. The verse has 2 identical commands. Make haste. David does not ease into his request or build toward it. He states his need at the beginning without ceremony. The repetition is not accidental. David presses the urgency twice because the situation demands it. His enemies are active, and time is of the essence. The word haste carries the idea of speed and immediate action. David is not questioning whether God will deliver him. He is asking that God act now rather than later. This is not impatience with God's character, but an honest acknowledgement that the crisis will not wait. David addresses God by 2 names in the same verse, God and Lord. The first is Elohim, the Creator and Sovereign Ruler. The second is Yahweh, the covenant God who made binding promises to his people. David stacks both names together, appealing to God's power and his covenant obligations. When circumstances press hard and time feels short, the believer brings that urgency to God without softening it into polite language. David's prayer gives permission to say, "Make haste," and mean it. "Let them be ashamed and confounded that seek after my soul. Let them be turned backward and put to confusion that desire my hurt." Psalm 70, verse 2. David identifies 2 groups of enemies and assigns a specific fate to each. The first group seeks his soul, meaning they pursue his life with intent to destroy it. The second group desires his hurt, meaning they want harm to reach him, regardless of whether they deliver it. Both groups operate with active malice. David prays for shame and confusion to fall upon them. Shame in the biblical sense means public exposure and disgrace, the collapse of a person's standing before others. Confusion carries the idea of being broken and scattered, unable to hold a position or execute a plan. David asks that these enemies be turned back, their momentum stopped and redirected away from him. This is an imprecatory prayer, a request for God to bring judgment on those who oppose his anointed. David does not raise his hand against them. He places them before God and asks God to act. The prayer reflects David's confidence that God governs the outcome of human conflict and that justice belongs to God rather than to David's own sword. Let them be turned back for a reward of their shame that say, "Aha, aha," Psalm 70, verse 3. The phrase "aha, aha" appears twice for emphasis. This is the language of contempt, the mocking cry of enemies who believe they have David cornered and God absent. They shout it over his suffering, treating his affliction as entertainment and evidence that his trust in God produces nothing. David asks that this mockery become the very instrument of their judgment. The reward of their shame means their shame returns to them as payment for their contempt. What they shouted over David's head comes back on their own. Their confidence becomes their disgrace. This pattern appears throughout Scripture. God uses the enemy's own weapons against the foes of his people.